Hi, everyone. Welcome to Maddox Show and Tell series, where we bring the top customer success teams to show us exactly what they're sharing with their customers that drives real results. This isn't hypotheticals, this isn't best practices, this is exactly what they're using. And today, we're lucky to have James Miller, AI and automation lead of client experience at Bazzarvoice. Hi, James.
Hey Bex, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming and doing the show and tell. For those not familiar, what does Bazzarvoice do?
Yeah, Bazzarvoice, we've been around for 21 years. We started, we're super well known for ratings and reviews, but really we work in UGC across the full funnel and really focusing on helping clients acquire that content, make sure it's authentic, believable content. So we use both AI and humans to moderate every piece of content that comes through our network. And then we make sure it's that you can access that content, right? That it's in all the places that shoppers need to view this in order to make informed decisions and be inspired. And that's everything from ratings and reviews, Q&A, social posts. We've got tools to help you connect with influencers, and then even brand new tools around ambassadors, like, right, everyday shoppers that are just champions of your product. So
Well, as a regular, frequent e-commerce shopper, I thank you and the team for the work you do.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I've been with Bazzarvoice about 12, maybe almost 12 and a half years.
Mhm.
And started off in sales very briefly, as coming from an acquisition. And then I really got excited about the world of client success. And so I became a client success manager in 2015,
Okay.
and spent time in our, what at the time called commercial. That was our SMB mid-market area. I spent
Mhm.
about 4 years working with our strategic retailers, so the largest kind of
Wow.
retailers within North America. And then moving out of that, I was the manager on our North America mid-market client success team. I
Mhm.
managed that team for the past 5 years, and then just moved brand new into this role at the beginning of May, which is the start of our fiscal year. So,
Congratulations on the new role, James. I mean,
thank
it's
you.
definitely, you got to have one of the hottest titles right now, AI and automation.
Yeah, I
Um,
got really lucky that that's the title they wanted.
One of the reasons I do want to call out that I'm super excited to have you, outside of the fact that you're just a great person, fun to talk to, is you actually had exposure to like the whole spectrum of like clients from like SMB to the big ones. So really excited to hear how you kind of see everything through that lens. But before we dive into this business review, I did want to pick your brain on a few customer content
Yeah.
strategy things. So, what content has moved the needle for you and why?
I think for us, the biggest needle mover is value driven content, right? So at the end of the day, our tools, like, we can talk about, did you get more reviews? Was the rating better? But all of that only matters in the context ultimately of, did that help shoppers make the decision to buy your product? Did we
Yeah.
get that stuff in front of the right shoppers and they bought your product? They increased their average order values and basket size, and ultimately give them the confidence they needed, right, or the inspiration they needed from that social content. And so that's really the things that move the needle, or when we can connect. If you can do this thing and this recommendation, we think that's going to help drive this kind of impact. And then being able to go back 6 months down the line, a year down the line, and say, you did these things, and we can see that it drove this kind of dollars impact. Because ultimately, different parts of the business are going to be looking at different individual KPIs, but it all rolls up if you get high enough. And if you want to get high enough within your client's organizational structures, eventually it rolls to the bottom line, right? And that's what's going to directly impact the success of our programs and the influence of our partnership with the client.
Yeah, especially in today's world where it feels like tech stacks are getting cut left and right, like you have to be able to tie to the money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What part of the customer journey do you feel like deserves more attention?
We have spent a lot of time thinking about this. And, I think it's like, at times it's been very focused on, what do we need to do? Hey, we need to reduce churn. So we really need to focus on renewal time period. That's 6 months to 3 months ahead of renewal.
Mhm.
Um, or we really need to focus on this time period. And I think what we ultimately are finding is it's great to work towards a renewal and showcase that value, but what really sets us up for success with a client is that sort of 90 days post renewal, and I would say also the 90 days post signature for a brand new client, where we really set the stage and the tone of what is this partnership going to be, what are we all expecting, right? And we all have clear expectations of what the goals are and the path we think there is to get there, and expectations of what does a service model look like, what do all these things look like, so we
Hmm.
don't get into these moments of tension with a client and then there's a misalignment on, well, why can't my CSM solve this support problem for me? And it's like, well, we're not support, right? But we've sort of aligned on that of who do you go to, and what can our different teams do for you? What does value look like for you as a client? I talked about drawing it down to the dollars and cents, but like
Hmm.
really making sure that they buy that, understanding like what are they trying to do, because you might be really impressed by the value we've driven and it might not be very impressive to them, or vice versa, it might not be believable to them. So it's just really that is the most key moment of alignment. Again, right out of
Hmm.
signature, you're in the midst of implementation, and we're trying not to sort of lose the business owners of the program while it's all in the hands of a lot more tech people.
Hmm.
And then really that I'd say not even 90 days, that 30 days after a renewal, where we say, hey, here were the challenges that came up in renewal, or and sometimes it's like, hey, this was a smooth renewal, we're all really excited, so let's stack hands on what we want to go achieve together. But a
Yeah.
lot of times it is like, this is what was difficult and what we really have to get past, and so we did it, and we want you to see that we're still bought in, even
Hmm.
though the
Yeah.
renewal's over. Like, we're not just gonna be like, all right, bye, renewal's done, we'll talk to you in 2 years or 3 years, hopefully, sometimes one. Right, but I think that that's such a key piece, to really build that buy-in, and that's something I think we're really trying to invest in as we move forward, is how do we do a better job there. And I think that that's sort of the next round of templates that we're going to really try to refine, is how do we really build something that's focused for that moment in the client journey.
I think you probably are one of the first people, at least on this show, if you will, to talk about the first 30 days after renewal, because everyone focuses on that onboarding and whatnot. But you're absolutely right. Like, you kind of got to treat each customer like you have to win them all over throughout the year, not
And
just.
I'm very appreciative of that we're in a very lucky spot, that we've been around 21 years. We have clients, that have been with us a long, long, long time, right? We've been working with the Walmarts, the Procter and Gambles of the world for decades. And so I think there is a huge chunk of our business that really is, growing from our existing
Mhm.
client base, right?
Mhm.
And incrementally finding new solutions for them, adding on some of our services like our sampling services and things like that, growing into new brands for like a P&G.
Mhm.
And so for me, then it's like we're getting less and less of that onboarding time. Now, if you go focus on like our S&B team, it's definitely probably that, that first 90 days of contract,
Mhm.
is super important, that onboarding. So I don't want to diminish that. It's super
Yeah.
important. But I think a huge chunk of what we're doing is an existing customer base that we are continuing to renew and trying to innovate and do new and great things with.
Last question before I hand it off to you. What are the big no's when it comes to customer content?
I think for me, the biggest no is it can't be just a dump of data. Like, it can't be a dashboard on a slide, right?
Mhm.
If I don't open up the slide and have at least somewhat of a knowledge of like where should I be looking, it's too much information. And so we are doing our best to try and move around. And it can be hard when you're, say, like trying to communicate, to a client that's got 25 or 100 brands, and you trying to get all that in there and showcase across all of them. Like, it gets hard. So I think the big no is getting too much data to where, the story just gets lost in the data, and there's too many things to distract you. So I think that's probably the biggest no, and it's a hard no because like it's just there's always more you want to showcase to the client, right?
It's almost like a
And
flavor of data FOMO.
right, like, am I missing this thing? And we're constantly getting CSMs coming to me like, can we get this data point added into the slide? It's like, well, let's think about it, and let's take that back a step before I just say, you want that, let's do it, let's put it in the template. Like, let's go talk to a few people and see does this make sense? If enough people are using it, okay, how are we working this in? And so I think that's one of the biggest ones is we want to be storytellers, we want to be consultants, and you can't do that if you just kill them with data and drown them in data. So that's probably the biggest one. And then the other no, I'd say is just like the business review. Like a lot of my focus is on what we're doing in client six. And a lot of it is we need to come in and we need to show the client the state of their program, make great recommendations to talk about a strategy moving forward. And so you get a lot of asks from throughout the business of like, can you get these slides into the deck? Can you get these slides in the deck? And so for me, it is really being a little bit of a gatekeeper. What are we going to actually put there? Is this announcement relevant to everyone?
Mhm.
Is it really? Does it make sense for every CSM to be talking about it? And then also just trying to make it. Hey, let's make this modular. Like this isn't like we throw this, but we've got a set, and CSMs can kind of look at these and be like, I do want to tell my client about this new feature or this event, and so I am going to put this in there because I think it's super relevant to them. So I think that is the thing is like one size fits all sort of announcement, feature announcements. It's like we need to be smart about the way we're talking to the client and make sure that what we're giving them is relevant to them, is relevant to their current state, um, while also being like, yeah, we do want to talk about like we have a growing product roadmap and we have lots of new features coming and we're really accelerating the pace of that and trying to get back to the like startup mentality there, but you can't throw it all in front of them at every business review, especially when you got an hour, locked in with a client, and maybe you only got the first 15 minutes with the executive buyer. And so, like, do I want to be talking about this webinar that's coming up, or do I want to get into the key value drivers on their program? So
That's a very thoughtful yes and approach. It's like yes and who. Okay, so I'm gonna shut up because I know our viewers love what's gonna come next.
okay.
So I'm gonna pass it over to you, James, to walk us through Bazzarvoice's full funnel business review. And remind me, James, but this business review has actually had material impact on renewal rates at Bazzarvoice, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the two biggest reasons we wanted to shift the focus of and the way we approached a business review with a client into this sort of full funnel story was one, we wanted to be a better partner and help them see like just how integrated Bazzarvoice is into their business. And often it's like a day-to-day might just kind of understand like, well, this is the thing I care about, and this is where Bazzarvoice impacts. But we found it's really helping with that conversation and driving that retention rate. And we're continuing to push our retention rates higher and get more aggressive with our goals each year. But the other thing too is it is also, we're really seeing it open up conversations around expansion. So for us, that's really was the focus of this is we started off over 20 years ago as a single product company, ratings and
Mhm.
reviews, white label rating and review software. Our founder read reviews about a baby stroller and on a large Seattle-based former bookseller turned everything seller,
Mhm.
and thought, and it was like his wife was like, had asked about this particular Peg Perigo stroller, and he was like, $600? No way. And then, you read a review from somebody that thought like him and was like, this is the one. And we actually have the stroller that he bought is in our Austin office. So we still have it to this day, the original Peg Perigo stroller that launched Bazzarvoice. But he saw that and he thought, like, this needs to be everywhere. And that's
Mhm.
great. And we built a great business off of that and grew and grew and grew. But over time, like you can only sell much to so much of the Fortune 1000, or then there's more and more growth, especially at SMB mid market. But like we did have to expand what we were doing, and I think especially as reviews has become like, yeah, that's a standard. You need these. So what differentiates Bazzarvoice, and what makes Bazzarvoice the best at this? And so there really did have to be growth in like the types of content. And the other
Mhm.
thing is that just the world's changed, right? So we focused a lot more on social, and so that's actually how I came in. We bought Bazzarvoice bought a company I was at that did social curation, right? Getting sort of social content into galleries on your site.
Mhm.
And then over time, we actually bought another social company. They really expanded that, did that better, as well as added social, management tools. Helped us launch the idea of we have our network, right? You collect your reviews, but we get it out to retailers, and to launch the same thing with social content. So really expanding over time what we were doing there, we bought a company that focuses on contextual commerce. So we call that, you'll see it, Coco branded a lot for us. But our contextual commerce is just taking all this content and all these things we know about your shopper from within their visit to your site and helping put that in front of them in the shopping funnel, right? And move them down. Like, did you know that 30% of shoppers rated this one 5 stars? Actually, I think it would probably only pop that up if we were higher than 30%. But whatever, like this has a 4.8 star rating and it's in your cart. Like, do you want to go buy, right?
Mhm.
Or people who rated the product you're buying high also bought these products, like, and really helping drive folks down the funnel as well as introducing them to other products, right?
Mhm.
So you add all that in. We have services around sampling and creator content, so creator influencer marketing. It's just a lot of stuff, right? And so we really had to think about how do you help somebody who maybe is only focused on this one little bit understand why we're asking maybe to bring other people into the conversation, and
Mhm.
how do you help them see everything we're doing. And I'm gonna assume like this is not my favorite slide, but it is like really the one that sort of showcases all these elements of what we do. They fall all across the funnel, right? And
Mhm.
so really this deck was our attempt at saying we have been very focused in BV, Bazzarvoice BV, focused like language around how we show you the success of your program. And we've been very siloed by our products, right? And so you get to a business review, say you use several of our products, and it's like, okay, your CSM's going to talk about ratings and reviews. You can talk about what you collected. You're going to talk about the coverage of it and how much, what products do and don't have content. They're going to talk about the sentiment. And then, okay, now we're going to come over and talk about social, and it didn't create a great story. And
Mhm.
then when you think about like trying to help somebody see that only has ratings and reviews, why our social product, it's like you give them a recommendation about looking into our social product. Well, you just give me a bunch of data about reviews, like why then are you
Mhm.
recommending this? Like, so it's just disjointed, and it didn't help open the conversation. So what we wanted to do is help our customers see, one, how what they're already using, like you might be in e-commerce and you might be like super focused on conversion,
Mhm.
but you've got some folks in your company that are highly focused on awareness. They're highly focused on that consideration out at retail, and we're helping you there. And here's how, right? And so really the goal is this is going to help you client get buy-in from other stakeholders, and that's going to help you increase your budget. It's going to look good for you, right? When you can showcase that something you work on and focus on has broad impact.
Mhm.
And then I think it also helps them see, okay, these different pieces of the Bazzarvoice program, how are they overlapping and working together? And so I'm not the social team, but maybe I can understand how Bazzarvoice social is like helping us convert, and that matters to me as the e-commerce team. And so it's really trying to help our clients bridge the gap between their teams and understanding how we can help impact and get a more comprehensive like approach as a team. And then I think again, just for us, obviously the helpful part from Bazzarvoice side is it's really helping our clients get introduced to a broader set of solutions we have. So we're not
Mhm.
talking about a bunch of single solutions, but we're talking about a whole full funnel solution that
Mhm.
has all these different parts. And so this was really the crux of what we were trying to do. And it was a massive puzzle. Like we sat down in sort of a think tank room,
Mhm.
this was probably 2 years ago, and we sat down and started thinking like, what are all the metrics? What are all the KPIs? And started trying
Mhm.
to map them to where we wanted to get. And I think some of us knew more about ratings and reviews Q&A. We had folks in there that knew more about social, and some of us were like, I don't even know what metrics they're looking at, right? And really trying to pull all of that together in this more cohesive story.
Mhm.
And so that's what we ultimately we spent months sort of mapping out what's the data that feels like it needs to be there, and what's the story we're trying to tell. And then it was like, okay, now let's go spend several months sort of getting that into sections and slides and how we want to present that, testing that, having some CSMs go present it in a non-automated way.
Mhm.
Um, but I will say one key thing we thought about at all those steps was like we were already using Matic. So at that point, I think we were a year or 2 years into using Matic, and we had built a template in sort of the old ways for us. And so everything we were doing, we knew in order for this to scale and it to work for the SMB CSM that has several dozen clients, all the way up to the CSM that has a handful of clients or just has one massive global conglomerate client, how do we get something that can scale and that can adjust for all of them? But ultimately, we can automate in Matic, and we still have a ways to go in automating. There's data points that we're still working on. There's we want to get in a space where instead of like you go pull this when you're ready, like we're dropping this in your Slack when it's time. Like, hey, GameSight's telling us it's time for you to have this business review. So here it is, right? It's
Uh-huh.
quarterly. So here's the last quarter worth of data. So we're really trying to move that forward. Now we have an automation and AI lead to think about that. But that was really the focus. And so as we like go down, we always start a little bit higher level, kind of we don't bury the lead, right? Here's all the things we're going to talk about. So we focus. This is all value focus. So we're trying to get as much as we can down to the numbers. Um, some of it, like the retail destinations, that's not going to be a dollar amount. But then as we get over, we're trying to estimate what kind of impact dollar wise are we having out in that retail network. What's happening on your own display, and this all will vary per client. Like some clients they don't sell on their site. Their site is inconsequential to them, and they really just care about what they're selling on Walmart and Target and wherever Dick's Sporting Goods, whoever they're selling at, right? And so this it's you kind of may have to adapt client to client. Of course, we have a different version of not showing for retailers. It's obviously sort of backwards to all this.
Mhm.
But yeah, just working our way down of what are you driving through social? And so what's kind of the revenue that we see through what you share out in social, through what you're doing through creators, all the way down to if you're using our contextual commerce tool, what's the revenue driven? And that one's very measurement focused. We can see who clicked through and actually bought from that message we popped up. Um, and then we know that like there's always gonna be the question of like, well, how did we do that? And so we pop it over to kind of what are some of the top level functional metrics that help drive those pieces. Um, the goal is often not to get too caught here, right? Because we're going to go into these in more depth. But at the same time, and I pulled out some of the slides we might do around an executive summary and hey, here's the content plan that we have with you guys. So I didn't include all of that. I focused on more on the data slides, but we would start there and showcase this, and we're just trying to recognize that like we may not have the executive audience for the full hour or 2 hours or whatever we've booked, and so we want to get this really top level information up at the very front, one to maybe catch their attention and keep them there
Yeah.
longer, but at the very least if they walk away they saw the impact we're driving and the key things that we're focused on to drive those numbers. And so
I love how you visualize the numbers. Like, I think when people think about visualizing data, they think charts, but something as simple as putting the numbers in a funnel context is
mhm.
super impactful. It actually makes Bazzarvoice seem like, oh, we need it for so many different things, not just one thing. So love that.
Yeah, well, that's the goal, right? Yeah, so I think that it's been really successful for us. It has been such a number of iterations as we've gone, and as we're trying to adapt this for those clients that have 25 brands under their house of brands or something like that, we're definitely trying to think, well, how do you visualize that? You can't do
Mhm.
this, or you'd have to do one of these per brand, and that's too much. Like that's a good send later, but not a good go through in person, right?
Mhm.
So there is definitely like we're continuing to think how do we better visualize, but at the end of the day, it's hey, how do we just really showcase where we are in the funnel? And so as we go through, and I did not include every slide, but these are some of the as we just start to talk through that awareness, and CSMs are empowered to know like I don't have to use every one of these just because we put it in the template doesn't mean you need to use it, right? So your client doesn't use social, maybe you minimize some of the social ones, but at the same time, like don't necessarily take it out, right? Like we've given them a library in another spot where they can fill in with like industry numbers to put in some of these, and so okay, you don't have this, like here's some industry numbers of what clients in that industry you're driving, right? And so you could be doing earned media value of this. Like, what are you guys doing in social? Like, how do you, this is actually, I think, more based on our sampling community influencer. But a lot of this awareness section is it's influencer, which is our sampling community. It is social focus. And so really obviously, if you've got a client that does this, you're filling it, these numbers are filling in. But if not, it's like fill in some industry numbers based on that. And there's probably still work to be done on how we can better automate that for them when they don't have a client that has this, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah, that's the focus is like you're starting to get into this funnel. So it's like, hey, let's showcase the full funnel here and where we're fitting across it. And now let's start to work our way down the funnel and client, here's how we're impacting you. And
I think that's
I
a
think
great use of
go ahead.
benchmarking data too. Like, hey, just because they don't have data doesn't mean that you can't use benchmarking
Yeah.
data to fill the gap, but also like make yourself seem like the subject matter experts, creating FOMO and all that good stuff.
Especially like in some of our different, like even let's say a client does use our social tools. So we have a suite of tools that we call Vibe. This is different pieces that you can buy within the Vibe platform, and maybe they're utilizing galleries on their site, maybe they're utilizing social tools, but they aren't taking part in our visual network, right? The
Mhm.
network that sends that content out to retailers. Or they're not taking part in Creators, which is our creator marketing platform, help you um, find smaller creators within social and hire them all within a platform. So it's an opportunity even there, like not even just like they don't use social at all. That's probably the harder to be like, so I'm gonna try to work this in, but hey, you're not using elements of this. And the clients who do, they see this, right? And in some cases, like you have this, you just aren't using it. It's part of a package you bought, but you've put your effort here and you sort of let this sit on the shelf
Mhm.
unused. And I'd say that's a big focus of ours when you think about like renewals. Let's not have shelfware out there. Like let's get through the tech debt and let's get clients circling back to sort of these projects that fell off.
Mhm.
Oh, they got 5 brands implemented on social, but 2 got kind of put on the back burner, and then we moved on, and everybody forgot about it.
Mhm.
So I think that's a way too there to sort of bring that back to the conversation of like you never turn to this on, so it doesn't have to be this full cross sell to another tool that we have.
Mhm.
Often it's just this is a way for you to get more value out of what you're doing. As a Q&A is the other really big one. It's like clients will, it's part of our sort of core R&R platform. And
Mhm.
lots of clients will get ratings and reviews up and going. That's what they bought for. And then they might sit on Q&A, or they say, well, we just don't have the resources. And especially if they said that a long time ago before
Mhm.
we built so many, we've got services, we've got tools where AI can help give you potential answers, and so it's easier for your client, your customer service teams to answer. We partnerships with CRMs to help
Mhm.
you like get those into your customer service workflows. So they may have like sort of ruled that out when
Mhm.
there were less options for them 10 years ago, and then it's like we've just sort of been like, well, they don't care about Q&A. And it's like, well, maybe they don't care about it because they don't realize what it could do, right? So this is an
Yeah.
opportunity to sort of bring that back out into the fold for them. Like, you got this. It's
Mhm.
part like let's get you more value. You're not like I'm not even asking you to pay me anything additional. I mean, maybe if you need to light up like a service like us answering questions for you, then yeah, we're probably going to charge you for that. But like if you just want if you want the AI tools, guess what? That's just part of the platform now, and you just need to turn this on and implement
Mhm.
it on your website. And so this is what I think is great about this. Like, yes, this is a deck that definitely helps us cross sell into other parts of our software. But
Mhm.
for a CSM who's like really focused on this, clients worried that like we know that we're the premium priced provider in our space, but there's a reason for it, and we really believe like absolutely. Like if you take advantage of everything we can do for you, you are going to get your investment back. And our clients typically see a 4x investment within 3 years, like 4x return on their investment within 3 years. And so yeah, I think it's just like one of those that like for a CSM, just being able to get that data back in front of someone in a natural way,
Yeah.
right? And not having to like pivot and shift gears over to a thing that they don't care about. I'm putting it as part of the conversation. So that's what we love about sort of the approach here. While still it still hits on some of the key things, right? Like we're still talking about
Mhm.
on a slide like this, where are you collecting content from? What does that look like from a page view standpoint? Like X%
Mhm.
of page views are to a page with content. Um, how much your content was for within the last 3 months. So we definitely talk a lot about the recency. Shoppers really want to see more recent content than they do 1 year old, 2 year old content. So all of that working through to help them, like, do you have enough of the content? And then what's cool is this, this conversation, I think like it's evolving, but this is still the foundation of the conversation because now the conversation has shifted to, do you have enough content and recent enough content
Mhm.
that large language models are picking up your products, and because they're using that content to refer your products. So do you have enough of that? And so nothing changed here on the slide, but the conversation, the story we're telling is shifting, and it's all still grounded in the same stuff. So like it still helps. So like, are you being picked up in that consideration set as they're starting to ask questions in an LLM about what kind of product they might want or what's going to solve this particular need? I guess we could argue that, I mean, that's awareness or considerations. That's like a little down
But,
the line.
at the end of the day, that's a recurring theme that I'm seeing with a lot of the really impactful content is not shying away from the gaps or where data may seem bad, but
Mhm.
really then leveraging it to be like, hey, this is how you can get more value from our
Yeah.
product, and this is how you can achieve success as a business.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, you can see there's some spots where we don't really have benchmarking around X, Y, or Z, but wherever we have benchmarking, and then wherever we can look at a year, where it doesn't have to be year over year change. Whatever two time, like, we've got it set up where they can put two time
Mhm.
periods in, their current and their previous. So maybe it's quarter over quarter, month over month, half over half.
Yeah.
I like to do year over year in our business because of the seasonality of
Yeah.
shopping. You
Hmm.
want to be comparing Q1 on the calendar to Q4 on the calendar. Like, of course, they got more reviews because they sold more stuff in, November than they did in January. But we got this sort of percent change. We got the benchmark. We built this in a way where they can go pull benchmarks from, any number of industries. So these aren't like all clients. It's down to, industry level. Um, we want to showcase that, right? Like, if
Yeah.
you're below the benchmark, like, we're not trying to shy away from that. We're trying to say, like, so if you don't have enough page view coverage compared to the benchmarks, that means shoppers are going to products and they're not finding the content they need.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because you have a ton of reviews, but it's all on old products, and you have a lot of changeover in your products. So it's like,
Mhm.
that opens up a conversation. Like, we have solutions, right? We've got our influencer community, and you can sample to them, right? Before your
Mhm.
new product ever hits the shelf, you can get that in the hands of shoppers and get reviews on that, right? So now that page view coverage is up where people are going. And so, like, yes, like, we want to showcase, quote, bad results, right? And I
Yeah.
think if there's any CSMs watching, I think that is the mistake I made early in my CSM careers. I was afraid to show the client that it was
Mhm.
bad. And what I found is that a lot of times it's not bad because BV wasn't doing what we need to do for them. Like, we always say, like, internally, kind of joking around, this is not Field of Dreams. I'm 41, so I'm going to make an old reference. So all the Gen Z CSMs out there, this may not hit. But
Ask
this is not build
ChatGPT.
it, they will come. Like, you have to come, and you
Mhm.
have to work at getting the content. And there are lots of evergreen sort of features and solutions that help you get content. But if you really want to do great and have enough content and have it in all the right spots, you have to be strategic about it. And so that may be sampling your products. It may be, doing some campaigns based around certain things, or sweepstakes during, I think, clients like Nordstrom are always so great. They always do a sweepstakes during their annual anniversary sales, like their one sale of the year.
Mhm.
And it just hits on content, right? So they can just get so much content because they maximize that time when they're getting the most sales. So, like, you have to be strategic, and this opens up the opportunity for us to show them how to be strategic. And then when we think about, okay, why does Bazzarvoice cost a premium? It's coming to you with that consultation and knowledge, and not shying away from telling you hard things, and not just shying away from getting creative with you. And so, yeah, I think that, like, showing them a benchmark and they're below it, showing them that, hey, you've got a like 30% year over year change in the wrong direction. So what do we need to do about it?
Mhm.
I To me, that, like, that shows that you're a consultant and you're a partner, and um, you're not just checking boxes to keep them around. Yeah, I think, I'm not gonna go into every detail, but right, we talked about Q&A.
Hmm.
It's an oft underutilized part of our platform, but clients that do it see great results. And
Hmm.
we've done so many things to make it easier that it's like you want to showcase to them, even if they don't have it. And for the ones that do, this is one where it's often when you talk about like, I'm going to show you some data and it's not going to feel good.
Mm.
And it's going to be like that answer rate is very low and you need to get it
Mm.
up, right? You should be answering all of them. So yeah, I think that that's such a good spot of like, but we've got solutions, right? And when I think about like the most, impactful pieces, we talked about this earlier, but I'm gonna just kind of skip us down to this conversion
Cool.
section. Like the most impactful stuff is when we tie it to the bottom line. And so this is sort of our look back on how we've impacted conversion and how we've influenced sales on your site. And we really look at that over the conversion rate, average order value, and try to get that up to like revenue per visitor.
It's the
And
money slide.
yeah, and then getting it down to incremental revenue. And this is just one piece. This is just like on your site, which,
Hmm.
like I said, some brands that it's non-existent, so it slides out, and some brands it's like that's like a half of a percent of their
Yeah.
business. And so you're gonna take this, and we've got some other things we can use to calculate for what's happening for you out in retail, and it's really extrapolating like, okay, if this 0.1% of your business is doing this, like what's the other 99.9% doing? And
I love
so
how you show the math on the slide in a very like easy to grok way.
yeah, it's definitely a like we don't get into like put a big equation on there, but it's just like okay, here's sort of the things that are happening and what's getting us to this number. Um, and then the other one I'm going to jump down to. This is actually really sort of part of our recommendation slide. So we'll sprinkle these sort of recommendation slides throughout. So that was the other thing we wanted to do instead of
Mhm.
let me show you a bunch of data. Now let me show you
Yeah.
some recommendations. Is we have recommendation slides that are color coded to those stages of the funnel. So that's like as we talk through awareness, here's a recommendation I have around what you could do in awareness. But here in the conversion section, we sort of roll all that up to say,
Mhm.
look, if we can go increase engagement with reviews on your site. And we can
Mhm.
go increase the coverage of the percent of people that are landing on a page with the review, then this is what we can see would happen,
Mhm.
right? And this is maybe a little more complicated math because we want to make sure that like we don't double dip. So it's
Yeah.
like increased engagement, increased coverage. Like we do some math to sort of backtrack some things out so we don't like count them in
Mhm.
both buckets. But hey, if we can do a 3% lift in engagement. So it's like right now you got 70% of your customers interact with reviews. If we could get it to 73%, we'll see, X dollar amount, right? And
Mhm.
tying that to, these are the recommendations we made about driving engagement. So turn on this photo carousel to highlight, reviews photos at the top of the review section. Switch to our new display module, right? Move reviews out from behind this tab. All that kind of stuff. And then the other is, okay, also if we can increase that coverage, we
Mhm.
can drive this amount. And so this is the aspirational. Like again, it's
Mhm.
directional, it's influence. Like we take a conservative mathematical approach because we're like we don't want to
Yeah.
overpromise underdeliver here.
Yeah.
But again, it's really showcasing these are the things we recommended, and this is what we think can happen if you go do them. And when we started really mixing this in, this originally kind of those sets of slides that we just showed, they
Mhm.
were their own template. And it was like, okay, once a year, do a value readout instead of a business review.
Mhm.
And part of this was like value should be part of the DNA of everything we do.
Yeah.
And everywhere we can, we should be
100.
showing the client the value of what we do, the value of the recommendations we're making. And so we really put that really directly into this full funnel narrative.
Mhm.
And yeah, so this is really the frame up. And again, this is very focused on like your direct to consumer
Mhm.
site. So it's like for our retailers, this is great. This is the end all. But for our brands, it's okay. Let's put this in the context and of what that means out in the network. And um, this is this percent of the pie. So it's doing the same thing out at
Yeah.
retail. But yeah, I think, and that becomes a whole other, bringing some other slides that sort of showcase that. But yeah, I think that this is really the piece is like, we've made all these recommendations. We've shown you what these numbers are doing, and I've
Mhm.
shown you spots where the numbers aren't good enough, like where we really think you could do better. We
Mhm.
recommended how to get there, and this is why. Because if we can do that, we know we can materially impact your business in a significant way.
Mhm.
And this is where it goes from, it's not like this is like an in-depth business case, but like when they go to say, hey, we need to do this, or I need to get engineering support for this. It's a lot easier to make when they can say, because we think that that could drive this amount. Even if they go cut it in half,
Mhm.
usually it's like, this is going to be significant. So yeah, I think that that's, if I can say it again and again, the more you can tie to the value that this materially brings to your client, the better. And I get that we are obviously a commerce focused and we are in the e-commerce world, but even you guys, like, when I have a business review with Matic, like we're doing a lot of work to tie back to, so what is the amount of time saved? What is the impact on your guys' renewal rates? And okay, like here's how that materially impacted Bazzarvoice. And that gets us the investment to keep renewing and to expand and get other teams interested outside of just client success. So I think it can be true for all types of B2B folks, but if you're doing anything in e-commerce and marketing, like you absolutely better have this. And how is this, everything I've told you is to get you to here. So
Mhm.
cool. And then it's like always, we want to close. We actually also put this up at the front too,
Mhm.
where it's like, what's the plan we've had so far? And then usually this is, we're either bringing that plan back or we've made some updates based on what I just told you here. We always want to close, right? Like,
Yeah.
here's the plan. And if you did it right, I should have enough time here at the end of the meeting to get the buy-in. What is the timeline? When do
Mhm.
we think we can do this? Who's going to own this? And really drive that into, say, a monthly sync or whatever we're doing with the client.
Well, thank you so much, James, for walking and diving deep into your full funnel
Yeah,
business
no
review.
problem.
I think this is one of the best examples of how do you connect the data to the recommendation? How do you position the data? And ultimately, how do you tell a story so that the client gets to the same conclusion that y'all are at? I also think this is probably one of the more unique examples because aspirationally, I think everyone wants to make their customer contact a hero in the company, but y'all are actually doing that, which is very cool to see.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it's very robust and it's very clear that y'all have done a lot of iteration and experimenting to get to this point, but you've got this really tight, solid story.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, we're really excited. I think, like I said, for me, I have been moonlighting as just owning all our Matic stuff for 3 years while
Hmm.
also managing a team of six. And so now it's okay, full time, focused on AI and automation. That's not just Matic, right? We're doing a lot of other
Yeah.
work around that. But I think that really the why the company was willing to invest to create that role is we know that like there's so much more we can do. Like even with this, we're not satisfied on the amount of time it takes, right, for a CSM to
Hmm.
prep because it's taken away from the time they can be in front of clients. Like we find our CSMs are in front of a computer building slideshows and preparing for a client meeting
Hmm.
way more than the amount of time they're in the client meetings. And so a lot of work that we want to do. We're so excited. We're really dipping our toes in Matic AI. All those headlines that are just blanking here today. Like, that's kind of a big goal of mine over the next probably 60 days.
Hmm.
Is let's start writing the prompts within Matic. We were kind of having folks go take your deck after the fact and ask Gemini to help you with one. And I was
Hmm.
like, let's just go do that. Matt can do it before you ever get your deck. A lot of work we want to do. It's like a lot of those recommendations, like some of the recommendations, like are pretty standard. You see
Hmm.
this, you're probably going to tell them to do this, right? They have this turned off and you see this number, you're probably going to do this. So it's like, instead of giving you a bank of slides, like let's go like inject that in there. And so a lot of work we plan to do over the next little bit to just scale this more again, especially for our folks in like SMB, mid-market. But I think will be helpful for, CSMs at any level. But yeah, we're excited. And I think, Matic has really helped us get really far on this. And I think will play a key role as we, improve this and iterate on it to kind of
Hmm.
have it tailored to different sections of that client journey a little bit more.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, James. It was great having you on our little show.
Thank you.
And yeah, hope everyone enjoys watching this.
Awesome. Thanks
Bye.
again.